Broadway ticket prices are going up seemingly by the minute, and especially post-pandemic, it is so expensive to see a Broadway show. So what gives? Why are Broadway shows so expensive? Let's break it down. Hi friends, if you're new here, my name is Katharine and I work on Broadway, off-Broadway, pre-Broadway, across the country, you name it, for better or worse, theater is the love of my life. A big passion of mine is trying to debunk and demystify a lot of Broadway myths. That's what we're doing here today. A lot of the industry, frankly, is just incredibly opaque. Some of that I feel is intentional, and some of it, there just aren't great educational resources out there as to why the business of theater works the way that it does. So I'm bringing you all on my journey as I am learning how the sausage gets made in the room where it happens. We will have to insert a Hamilton clip there. I have here in my hand part of an investor packet for a Broadway show from the last season or two. For the purposes of hoping to continue to work in this industry, I'm not going to let you know which production this is in particular. Just know that it is current, and I'm not working on this show. I'm currently looking at the summary sheet. So in this investor packet, I've got a recoupment schedule. What the heck is recoupment? Recoupment is how long it takes for investors to get their money back on a show. What you are recouping is the total capitalization cost. The total capitalization cost is something that we're about to break down, but the amount of money that you need to get your show up and running. Your ticket is going towards paying this capitalization back or recouping the investment in the show. It is a fact that 80% of shows on Broadway do not recoup their investment. So 4 out of 5 times, I like to say 8 out of 10, which is silly because it's just the same. Broadway shows lose money on Broadway. Now, it's possible that a show, an entity, can make its money back on tour or through licensing. So some shows do a lot better on tour and in licensing. A show that I worked on earlier in the year was Shucked. Shucked closes January 14th, and then it's going to tour the nation. I actually don't know this information, although it's usually published when a show has recouped its investment. So Shucked, I can't fathom, will have recouped its investment by the time it closes on Broadway. However, I think it's going to tour very well, and then I think it will license like hotcakes. So anyone who gets in on that, I think, will have made an incredibly wise investment. If you have invested in a Broadway production, it doesn't automatically mean that you have invested in the touring production. However, you will often have first right of refusal to invest in the tour as well, and potentially get your money back there, and then some. If you want to invest in a Broadway show, you have to be what's called an accredited investor. To be an accredited investor, you have to have made over $200,000 the past 2 years consecutively, and or have a net worth of $1 million. So essentially, you are proving to the government that you can lose all your money on a Broadway show, and you'll still be okay, because investing in Broadway is a remarkably risky investment. Why someone would invest in a Broadway show when the odds are so dismal is another question for another time. So if you want that video, leave a comment. Okay, now that we've done some 101, there are various agreements in here, the recoupment page, an instruction letter. All right, looking at this budget summary, there are, I would say, about 25 line items in the production expenses. Those are the expenses that it takes to get the show up and running. Also, if you're hearing a jingle jangling, I'm autistic and I got a new fidget ring. I'm into it. If you have a favorite fidget, you can also leave that below. Can you tell that I'm an ADHD human here? Anyone? The most expensive line item here is the total physical production. So that is the set, that is costumes, that is props, that is the physical attributes of a show, what you see on Broadway. And it's worth noting, this will vary a bit from show to show. For instance, plays don't need the same amount of money to capitalize, raise, as musicals. Musicals are way more expensive. The next biggest line item is the load-in and rehearsal costs, specifically pertaining to Local 1 and labor. Local 1 is the premier stagehand union of the International Alliance for Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE. We are the brothers and sisters who construct, install, maintain, and operate the lighting and sound equipment, the scenery and special effects, which thrill and delight audiences attending Broadway shows, Radio City Music Hall, Madison Square Garden and Carnegie Hall, the Met Opera, Lincoln Center, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, and PBS. These are your stagehands. IATSE is an incredibly strong union, if not the largest union that pertains to a Broadway show. They are very, very, very powerful, which is great. They're a very strong union. The union of which I am a part, SDC, we are small and mighty-ish, We're trying. We have like 2,500 members or something, or like maybe 5,000 tops. I think IATSE, let's look. 170,000 members of IATSE. The reason that this is important to note is these are not negotiable rates. Union rates are strong, especially on Broadway contracts. So this is a massive over $1 million line item in this summary. Pre-production, the time that choreographers take to get dancers in a room and pay those dancers and explore the choreography in advance. That's a fee. Not one of the larger ones, but it is one. The other largest ones are advertising, closing costs, because the show is also responsible for shutting the show down and loading it out, and you have to pay for that in advance. Bonds, which is sort of like an insurance policy to ensure if the producers have totally effed up on the production, they don't have enough money to pay their actors, the show is closing, those actors can still get their 2 weeks of pay that they are due. Cast rehearsal salaries, that's a bigger one. Then we get into slightly smaller line items, which include, but are not limited to, total fees. I'm gonna be completely transparent with y'all because that's the way we roll over here. I don't know what total fees means in this instance. I do know that producers don't make their money back on a show until the investors are paid back. So 8 out of 10 times, 4 out of 5 times, producers are not making their money back on a show. However, they gotta eat. So there's usually an office fee that they will be paid. So that is a fee. Also, writers will often be paid in advance. They don't really see money until the show is actually running, and then they see a bigger bump once the show is recouped. So that's an additional fee. So fees, my guess is that fees are paying people to get the show up and running before you're in rehearsals, before the show is open. Happy to be corrected though. Kindly. Let's do it kindly. Let's offer some additional information kindly. Total developmental costs, total general and administration, orchestra read, transportation per diem and hauling, theater expenses, press, casting expenses, wardrobe and hair load-in, IATSE Pink contracts, which is an entirely separate thing from Local 1, load-in and tech and shop time, manager, press agent salaries. Yeah, okay, we've covered how much it takes to get the show up and running. This typically on a musical will be anywhere from like 15 to nowadays like $25 million, which is, think Water for Elephants is supposedly $26 million. Cabaret, I'm sure, will be incredibly expensive. I think their operating costs are over $1 million a week, but also they're charging $900 a seat. So no, $800 a seat. Sorry, $900 a seat is Merrily We Roll Along. So, you know, nice work if you can get it. So capitalization, $15 to $25 million. Ish. Some gonna be less. Congratulations if you're less. That is awesome. Okay, so we've established the total amount that we need to recoup. Now we're into weekly operating expenses, and this is very broad strokes. Weeklies are something that producers hold incredibly close to their chests. General managers hold incredibly close to their chest. I am really eager to get my hands on some. So if you're a producer watching this, if you're a GM watching this, if you like me, I'm good people. I'm not gonna dispel everything online. We're smart about how we do this. I just want to better understand. And I'm not ready to commit to producing a show because I'm a good businesswoman. I don't like these odds. So until I feel confident that people aren't gonna lose their money if I'm asking them to raise for a show, we're not in it. This is not charity. Like, they're not, no. Weekly operating expenses. So our broad strokes categories are total salary and benefits, total rentals, total perishables. Do you have like food props? Do you like that stuff? Like just things that need replacing. Total general and administrative, total transportation and per diem and cartage, fancy people who negotiate for cars, etc. Total advertising / press / marketing / digital, theater expenses, and fixed fees and royalties. So of all of these things, what do you think is the most expensive? If you guessed theater expenses, you would be correct. It is astronomically expensive to rent a Broadway theater, and I have heard so many different rumors about whether or not theater owners are price gouging their tenants. Did you know that when you rent a Broadway theater, all you get are the 4 walls? Those producers are responsible for supplying the toilet paper, the paper towels. Theater owners choose the vendors who are doing, you know, front of house staff, the people who are working within the theater. However, the producer is the one paying them, but you have to use the people that the theater owners want. So when you want to talk about the most power on Broadway, it's not producers, it's not directors, certainly not actors, it is the theater owners. They hold the keys, the proverbial keys to all of Broadway, and there are really only 3 primary owners. There are 3 white men of a certain age who are in charge of what enters the canon of musical theater, what houses or theaters you have access to. And it's all about relationships. It's not a meritocracy. Crazy. What? Anyway, What a world. I can break some of that down also in another video if you wish. If you have that information, obviously you can also share your feelings about it in the comments, but that's the situation. Great, so then there's a nice big line item that says total weekly operating expenses for royalties. So that's how much you're gonna wanna make, minimum. Then there's minimum royalties of people getting paid out, the creatives who are with the show. Then total weekly operating expenses with the minimum royalties. And that's what you gotta make. Anything on top of that goes towards the capitalization. Once you've recouped your investment, gravy. That's very rare. Very, very rare. $145 was the average Broadway ticket price in the 2018 to 2019 season, which is the last season that the Broadway League published their sort of annual report about these numbers. But if you go to Broadway World, it tells you that I think last year was like around $130, or maybe we're currently hovering around $130. We've dipped ever so slightly, which seems impossible, and certainly won't be the case once we hit spring, because do y'all know that we have like somewhere between 13 and 15 original new musicals coming to Broadway this spring? Many will enter, few will win. Anyway, that's what your $130, your $145, your $900 if you're going to see Daniel Radcliffe, that's what that money is going towards, to a show that probably won't be successful anyway, but we love it.
What I did for love.
All right, if you found this video insightful, enjoyable, useful, let me know. If you didn't, maybe just don't. Maybe just don't. Maybe just, you made it to the end. You had to find it at least a little entertaining. If you enjoyed this video, clicking the like button, leaving a comment, or hitting subscribe, or all three, is the best way to let the YouTube algorithm know what kind of humans to push this out to, wonderful humans like you. So that little like of a button is super, super, super useful to me, particularly as a new YouTube creator. As always, I invite you to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at It's Katharine Quinn. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.